Hey, my superstar scientists. I sure do miss you guys, but I am here to share with you some great information as we take a journey into space again and talk about comets today. Got my trusty little space helmet on, looking fly. Or not, whatever. Go ahead and take some notes today. If you have a journal, go ahead and stick those notes in your journal. Get, really creative with it. Use your gel pens, your flare pens, whatever you like, or just write it in pencil. I don't care, whatever floats your boat. If you don't have a journal, go ahead and write these notes down on your own notebook paper, and we can just add them into your journal when we get back to school. I have tried to make it easy on you on which might be the most important notes to take because there's a lot of information here. So my suggestion of some of the main ideas to write down are going to be in red. So trying to make it easy for you guys. But all the other information is really important to know. So please listen to it because it's going to help you understand the notes you're taking in red, help you understand those a little bit better. All right, let's get started on our journey. Here we go. Comets. All right. A comet is a celestial object, meaning it's in space, and it's made of ice and dust, and it's going to orbit around the sun. Now, here's the deal. You can't see these with your naked eye. You have to have like a telescope or, any other fancy technology equipment out there. But since you can rarely see them with your naked eye, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. You're really going to be lucky if you even see one in your lifetime. So anytime you see it on the news or it's being advertised, make sure you take the time to go outside and try to see it because it doesn't happen very often. So moving on, let's talk about where we might find them. They are typically found in the Kuiper Belt. Now the Kuiper Belt is another belt besides the asteroid belt, which we're going to talk about the asteroid belts when we talk about our asteroid lesson, but you probably are familiar with that. The Kuiper Belt has comets. It does have a few asteroids too. But the comets that are found in the Kuiper Belt are what are called shorter period comets. What that means is that it takes those comets less than 200 years to make a complete orbit around the sun. So it still takes a long time, but less than 200 years. The Kuiper Belt has millions of icy comets that will circle the sun in the same plane as our planets. And that's kind of what you notice right here in this part of the picture, because you've got your Kuiper Belt and your Oort cloud. And we're going to talk about the Oort cloud here in just a minute. Obviously, feel free to pause and write down your notes. So you can go as fast or as slow as you like. I'm going to move on to the next slide. All right, so talking about the Oort cloud over here, this is where you're going to find those comets that have longer periods. It takes them over 200 years to make one trip, one orbit around the sun. So shorter period comets take less than 200 years to go around the sun. Longer period comets take over 200 years to orbit around the sun. And these Oort clouds, the Oort cloud is a region of our solar system that's way past the orbit of the dwarf planet Pluto. So way, 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 way out there. So you can see like right in there. There's Pluto, so way out here. All right, so in the Oort cloud, we've got billions of comets that move in nearly circular orbits around the sun, rather than the elliptical plane of our planets. So it's more circular, definitely almost perfect circles. All right, moving on, let's talk about what a comet looks like. Okay, a comet has three parts to it. It has a nucleus. So if you look right here, nucleus, we've studied that before. Nucleus is right there in the center. That's what's called the dirty snowball. If you ever hear that, a comet's a dirty snowball. And it's made up of frozen ice, gas, and dust. And that's the nucleus of the comet. Now, the coma, that's kind of outside that nucleus. This is water vapor and other gases. So it's kind of like, it's like this atmosphere of the Earth, if you would think of that. Not an atmosphere, but I'm just saying how that goes around it. Then lastly, you have a tail. And technically, there are two different tails, but we're just going to kind of combine the thought into one. The tail is made of gas, which they call them ions, and dust. So technically, you have an ion tail and a dust tail. But altogether, we're just going to refer to it as one and just know that there's two parts to it. Okay. really good information to write down. You may even want to draw that picture. All right, so let's talk about how the comets move around or travel in their orbit. This is really interesting. So now every once in a while, comets are going to get disturbed by passing a star or colliding with other comets, and some of them are going to fall towards our solar system. Now, because a comet's orbit is so large, some of those comets will only pass near the sun one time, just once. Now, here's really good information here. When a comet nears the sun, the tail, which remember it has two parts, you've got your ion and your dust one, the tail will always point away from the sun due to the solar wind. So as it's moving around its orbit and it's coming closer to the sun, you see the tails are this way, but as it comes around towards the sun, the tail moves out the other way. So the tail always is pointed away from the sun. Good thing to know. All right, moving on. So just some more information about kid-friendly comets. Comets orbit the sun just like planets and asteroids do, except a comet usually has that very elongated orbit. Remember, shorter period comets take less than 200 years. That's a long time. As comets get closer to the sun, some of the ice that's made up of the dust and gas starts to melt and boil off. And those particles of gases, that's what makes that cloud around the nucleus. That's what we call the coma. Now, this coma, and it may not be hard to see, I can't tell if my video is covering it. It says the coma is lit by the sun, and that's the part that I want you to write down. The coma is lit by the sun. The sunlight also pushes this material into that really brightly lit tail of the comet. All right. So moving on, our comets are cosmic snowballs. They call them dirty snowballs. That's a really funny nickname for it, but again, it's made up of frozen gases, rock, and dust that orbit the sun. Couple piece of information on this page, kind of a review of what we already said. When frozen, they're the size of a small town, like Wiley maybe. So they're pretty big. When a comet's orbit brings it close to the sun, it heats up, spews off that dust and gases into a giant glowing head larger than most planets. So they're not small. They look small if you ever get to see them in the sky once in a lifetime, but they're pretty darn big. Dust and gases form a tail. We talked about that, and they stretch away from the sun for millions of miles. So their tails are long. I mean, huge. This thing, that's what I just said. That could be millions of miles long. And there are likely billions of comets orbiting our sun in the Kuiper Belt, and even more in the distant Oort cloud. This is a great link right here when you have extra time, if you want to watch that. It's really good information. Now, in the next couple of slides, it's just some more fun information. I don't have any more notes to write down until about 4 slides later, which will be our last one. All right, so just some more information from NASA. Notice the tail of gas and the dust is away from the sun. Okay, so this picture here, it's away from the sun. So this is the fragments of the comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 as seen by Hubble on May 17th, 1994, before you were born. It's including all the 21 fragments and spans 710,000 miles, 3 times the distance from the Earth to the sun. It really impacted Jupiter in July 1994. Halley's Comet. Now, this is the one that typically you might see once in your lifetime. It's on average will orbit the Earth every 76 years. Now, the comet Halley will move backwards opposite the Earth's motion around the sun. Excuse me. Its backwards motion is very unusual as opposed to any of the other short period comets. Its greatest distance from the sun is beyond the orbit of Neptune. Now, in 1986, I remember this. I was 16 years old. Halley's nearest approach to Earth occurred on the outbound leg of the trip. So you could see it on its last leg of its trip around the sun. It was slightly brighter than the North Star Polaris, but again, it spread over a much larger area. And it was just really cool. It just looked like a little star, but it was, if you were really around it, like I said, millions of miles long tail. Crazy. They're really big. Some more information about Halley's Comet. Every time it goes around the sun, Halley's Comet loses about 3 to 10 feet of its material from its nucleus. And just so you know, as a comet does age, as it continues to make multiple orbits around the sun, it's going to diminish in appearance, and it may lose a lot of its ice in the nucleus. The tail begins to disappear, and then it finally evolves into like this big dark mass of rocky material, and maybe just dissipates, just goes away into just dust. Scientists calculate that an average periodic comet lives to complete about 1,000 trips around the sun. Halley's Comet has been around for at least 16,000 years, but has really not shown any signs of aging since it's been recorded. All right, one last slide. I really encourage you to look up some information about Halley's Comet. It's pretty cool. Now, this is important to know how comets are named. They're usually named for their discoverer or discoverers, or for the name of the observatory or telescope used to discover it. Halley was first. The scientist Halley correctly predicted the return of this comet. It was the first such prediction, so they finally named it in his honor. It wasn't always referred to as Halley's Comet. The letter P refers to its periodic comet, and this is your shorter period comet, so less than 200 years. And it was last seen in 1986. And that completes our journey into space to learn more about comets. I hope you've enjoyed this. We'll have a couple more journeys into space to learn about asteroids and meteors too this week. So stay tuned. Guys, I miss you so much. And please come on to Google Meets if you have any questions. I'm here to help you for anything. I sure do miss you guys. Bye.